Hey guys, how's it going? It's Al. Every single season, I put out my perfect draft. If you have not watched already, I published my optimal draft style. That's a process-based look at the players or the positions that I'm looking to draft at each different part of the first 10 rounds, because that's really where I think you build the strongest foundation for your team. The last 10 rounds in a draft, that's where you're looking for upside or cover. But you really are going to win and lose your draft in those first 10 rounds. The upfront, the middle rounds, everything else is where you're going to build that super solid core of your team. And the process look for that is over on that video. This video is where we're going to take a look at the players that I'm targeting in each round, 1 through 10 in your 2022 fantasy football drafts. So let's go.
He's a legend.
So I have to start all the way at the top, right? We're in the first round, and I think that I have to spend a little extra time. Instead of saying, here's 2 players in the first round that I like, I have to take a little bit of a deeper dive in this round in particular, because you are, you're living in the same building if you've got, with everybody's first round pick, but like, you got massively different views if you're picking in the top 5 or 6 versus picks 7 through 12. And here's why. To me, there is a clear top 5. The top 5 being any combination or any order of Christian McCaffrey, or Jonathan Taylor, or Cooper Kupp, Justin Jefferson, or Jamar Chase. Those are my top 5. So looking at those 5 players, you have a distinct advantage, because I think that there is a teardrop after them. Not a single tier, but T-I-E-R. Going to that next tier, and that next tier is vast. Okay? So all those players in the second half of the first round, they're somewhat interchangeable, and it just comes down to almost like picking what flavor ice cream you like. You can't really say that somebody's right or wrong about any one of those picks. It's just a matter of which one you want. But like, I can say that if you're picking in the top 5, maybe with the exception of like Austin Eckler sneaking into the top 5, if you're prioritizing running back, yeah, I think that you are wrong if you take any of those second tier players over any of that top 5. So like, my primary player that I want is going to be Christian McCaffrey, especially on DraftKings, where it's full PPR with bonuses. Nobody in the league is better when they're right than Christian McCaffrey. I can understand if you want to draft Jonathan Taylor, but Jonathan Taylor just doesn't have the per game ceiling that Christian McCaffrey has. Jonathan Taylor had a dream season last year where he put up massive numbers, had a 50-point week. Most weeks he was sitting between 20 and 30 points. That's right where you wanted him on a site where you've got bonuses, but he doesn't have all that much usage in the passing game, at least consistently. And when you're playing PPR with bonuses, you want to have somebody like Christian McCaffrey who can get you 30 points, 24 with 1 touchdown, 26.1 with no touchdowns, 24, 1 touchdown, 27, no touchdowns. His realistic, if he plays 16, 17 games, average points per game is like 4 to 5 points higher than if they both have their best season than Jonathan Taylor. So Christian McCaffrey is my top half pick. Now, if you're picking in the top half of the rounds of the first round, if you have a pick 1 through 6, as much as I love Cooper Kupp and as much as I love Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase, I'm probably prioritizing a running back, if at all possible, because drafts have changed. Like, we've drafted since May and June and July, and it's been a different story where you could get a lot of players in the second half of drafts from like the 140th pick to the 200th pick to fill in those RB 3, 4, 5, possibly 6 slots. And they're not there anymore. All of those guys have jumped way up and are now going between picks 90 and 120. So it's much tougher to get that deep value out of your running backs that have any sort of expectation of seeing a lot of 200 to 250 plus opportunities or touches this year. So I'm prioritizing running back in the first half with my picks that I get if I'm drafting 1 through 6 in any draft right now. We're recording this on the 19th of August. So like, I've shifted from going wide receiver and then being able to get one of these running backs in the second round late. Even those guys have moved up, as we'll get to shortly. In the second half of the first round, Stefon Diggs is my primary pick that I want. Now, if Austin Eckler falls into this range, great. Like, if Eckler's there at 7, 8, 9, yeah, I'm taking Austin Eckler because I believe that he leads off that tier, even though he should be in the range for some sort of touchdown regression because of how deep he scored touchdowns from. Stefon Diggs, with the season he had last year, is actually should have scored more touchdowns last year. You have 15+ touchdown upside. It would not shock me at all if Steph Diggs led the league in terms of receiving touchdowns with the amount of targets he gets in a super high volume pass game offense with an MVP caliber quarterback in a division that really should not be able to stop him. So Steph Diggs, if he gets just the same service that he got last year, the American hero should have himself a much better season this year in terms of touchdowns. There is a lot of variance. It's mostly due to supply, end zone targets, red zone targets, and Steph Diggs just piles up all of those and should have scored more touchdowns in 2021. I expect to see that with the same usage in 2022 become actualized. In the second round, now here's a player we've been drafting all summer. We were drafting him back in May when his ADP was like 30. 25 to 30. It is no longer that. Right now, Saquon Barkley's ADP sits at like 14.5. He may be sliding into the first round. So if I'm picking late in the first round and I'm picking early in the second round, Saquon Barkley is definitely somebody that I'm still clicking at that point. Yes, the Giants offensive line right now has some injuries. They expect those to be solid by the time the season gets here. They did spend a lot of equity in the offseason improving that offensive line, and Saquon Barkley is the only guy in town. 350 opportunities is nowhere out of the realm of possibility with 275 carries, possibly 100 targets coming his way in this better schemed offense. It will obviously depend on how good Daniel Jones can do at moving the sticks, but that's really all that they have to do is move the sticks, and the players will do the things to score touchdowns for them because they do have some players that can make touchdowns happen, Saquon Barkley being the best of them. At the back half of the second round, Mike Evans has been somebody that I absolutely love clicking. We talked about how I think that Steph Diggs could lead the league in terms of touchdowns, but for the last 3 seasons, no wide receiver has more touchdown receptions than Mike Evans. So we're getting a touchdown upside guy. Now look, his value is clearly tied. I have to say this, there's going to be some bucks on this list. Spoiler alert. I have to tell you that their value is directly tied to Tom Brady being on the field. And right now he is either the masked singer or he is dealing with some marriage issues because Giselle is upset that he is not spending time at home. He already pulled a hokey pokey on us and said, I'm retiring. Just kidding. I'm not. And I'm back. I don't think he's going to retire. I think he'll be back. Maybe there's some credence to this masked singer thing that it's a contracted thing. They think that he's filming that. That's where the internet has gone with this. But like, if it's a marriage thing, if it's a TV reality game show thing, it is what it is. But if he's there, Mike Evans still going to be a guy who in this offense and subtracted AB's targets and a recovering, even though he is practicing with a knee brace, Chris Godwin, who does not project to be 100% by early in the season. Mike Evans could see a massive amount of volume for the first half of the season. And for the playoff weeks 15, 16, 17, has one of the easiest schedules. The Buccaneers have some of the highest projected team totals during those 3 weeks. So love Mike Evans in that spot. Another route that I'm going late in drafts, late in the second rounds is Mark Andrews. If you're not going to get Travis Kelce, I'm fine getting Mark Andrews. I do want to have an elite tight end on my teams this year. That's one of the top 5 being Kelce, Andrews, Kyle Pitts, Waller at the back end of that tier with George Kittle at 4 and 5. Prioritizing one of these tight ends is different this year than it used to be. Getting that big gap between the guys that, well, maybe this guy can pay off and maybe they can't. Mark Andrews would be a bonus player for you on this list on my perfect draft if I have an early first round pick. Make sure that you head over to RotoWire. There is going to be a link below in the pinned comment. Do me a favor and interact with that. Drop a little like on the pinned comment just to let me know that you saw it. They are giving away a 2-day trial for free to all of our viewers here on the channel. Great software, all access pass. If you have your friends and family league coming up and you want RotoWire's projections, you want to do some mock drafts on that site, you can take their rankings and customize them for your league and your league scoring, then print them out. You get 2 full days. So right before your league is going to draft, go over there and check it out. Smizzle.tv/RotoWire will take you right there. They have all the ADP charts and everything that you need to see if you can piece together and plan and map out your draft. Leonard Fournette, same caveat as Evans had before. He's going at the top end of the second rounds. Ending up with like Evans and Fournette on a team gives me 2 guys who are going to get a monster share of the targets and a lot of end zone targets and inside the 5 end zone targets for Mike Evans, inside the 5 carries for Leonard Fournette. there's just a lot of touchdowns to be scored in Tampa Bay, and I want the two guys who have the greatest chance at leading that team in touchdowns. And when you factor in that he was one of the top 5 target getting running backs in the league last year, something that people were not giving him enough credit for being, right? They weren't giving him enough credit in his skill set for having that kind of locked in. We talk about pass catching backs, right? And a lot of the time pass catching backs can be quantified by do they play in 2-minute drill? Are they guys that get third down, long down and distance type usage, guys like McKissick and Nyheim Hines. So we've isolated to the first 2 first downs and second downs. Leonard Fournette led the league last season. He was one of 5 running backs who had greater than 4 targets per game on first and second downs. That list is Leonard Fournette, then Eckler, then Swift, then Barkley, somebody else on my perfect draft list, and Alvin Kamara. We like that archetype of backs who get heavy usage, tons of inside the 5 carries, and a lot of targets in not specifically pass down, dump down situations, right? So like he's going to get his heavy dose of targets, carries, and a whole lot of touchdown upside and opportunity. Also, in the 3rd round, Leonard Fournette goes along with Mike Williams to me. Another high-powered offense. Take your choice here between Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. I like the touchdown upside of Mike Williams a whole lot more. He also has more big splash ability. If you're playing in best ball, you want players who can get that spike week for you. Mike Williams definitely has that in his arsenal as Justin Herbert takes another step forward in his amazing career. Yeah, there's going to be some valleys, but the peaks are massive, right? 16.2 points per game. But you count his 20-point weeks, 22, 22, 36, 39. The big weeks are just tremendous. And if we can see a little bit more consistency from him in 2022 versus 2021, which I do think will happen with the big contract that they gave him and funneling him more targets more consistently, Mike Williams could really blast off here in 2022. If you guys are still watching at this point of the video, thank you for being here. Drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, ring the notifications bell. Let me know which players you think are underpriced at ADP and are ending up in more of your lineups than others as we move on to round 4. Guess what? It's still Ezekiel Elliott. You know what's been fun for me this week? I've kind of turned into McClane from the Die Hard movies as I'm seeing a whole lot of people, Evan Silva, Amico, a whole lot of people on fantasy football Twitter are starting to wake up to the idea that we're getting Ezekiel Elliott at his floor. We've had this conversation a ton. I will briefly give you the TLDR. Yes, I believe that based on the metrics and the analytics that Tony Pollard is a more explosive and better back than Dallas has in Ezekiel Elliott. I think that Dallas's offense would be just fine if Ezekiel Elliott was not there and Tony Pollard was playing. And you'd have a possibly league-winning season out of Tony Pollard with an ADP of like 78 to 82 right now. But Jerry Jones is an egomaniac, and he spent an awful lot of money on Ezekiel Elliott, and he's going to keep pounding the ball to him. Now Ezekiel Elliott not playing on a torn MCL in his leg when he did last year and broke 1,000 yards with 12 touchdowns. I kind of think that the running back dead zone, which previously started in rounds after round 3, I think it starts in round 5 this season based on the value that's been pushed down by a lot of people pushing wide receivers up their boards, and Ezekiel Elliott is a glaring value for me in round 4. He is my highest drafted running back out of pretty much everybody at this point in the first 10 rounds, and I don't see that changing until that ADP shifts. I do think the ADP is going to move up between now and the regular season as he is far and away their lead back. They're going to keep feeding Zeke 20 touch expectation with usage in the passing game and all those sweet inside the 5 carries. 4th round feels like a gift. If he stays healthy, he's going to smash. In the 4th round at wide receiver, if you have your running backs early, I prefer Jerry Jeudy in this tier. Before Courtland Sutton was cheaper than Jerry Jeudy, I was drafting the lower priced one of these Denver Broncos receivers with the upgrade in quarterback at Russ Wilson. Courtland Sutton is now going 12 picks ahead of Jerry Jeudy. So I'm going to take the value, not knowing I think Courtland Sutton's going to have an amazing season. It's not a dig on Courtland Sutton. I think he's awesome. When his ADP was 50 and Jerry Jeudy was 45, or 55 and Jeudy was 45, I was taking Sutton. But now that he's 33, now I'm taking Jeudy. Again, in this spot in the 4th round, you're going to get a very high volume player with greater efficiency at quarterback, a lot more on target throws, 8+ target expectation, in my opinion, coming to Jeudy this season. I think that him and Courtland Sutton are both going to be kind of the alpha. Everybody wants to talk about who's the alpha wide receiver. I think that they're going to kind of match each other when it comes to their target market share. And I don't want to be the lazy analyst saying, well, you know, DK Metcalf is going to be Courtland Sutton and Tyler Lockett is going to be Jerry Jeudy, but I think both of them are going to sit between like 23 and 26% of Russ Wilson's targets. And that's good enough for me, especially in the 4th round of drafts. In round 5, Juju Smith-Schuster. Guess what? Massive upgrade here. Yes, I know Ben Roethlisberger is good. Yes, I know Juju Smith-Schuster was hurt. All the Steelers fans get really upset if you say that Patrick Mahomes is better than Ben Roethlisberger. But guess what? Patrick Mahomes is better than Ben Roethlisberger. I said it. It had to be said. Juju Smith-Schuster is another value here in round 5. Love getting shares of the Kansas City Chiefs offense, especially at a bargain. I'm not saying that he's going to be Tyreek Hill. Nobody's going to be Tyreek Hill. That's just not going to be a thing. However, Tyreek Hill has had a 1st round ADP the last few years as the #1 outside target for the Kansas City Chiefs. And you're talking about an ADP between like 7 and 12. And now we're getting Juju Smith-Schuster with an ADP of like 52 in a similar role. I expect Travis Kelce to be the #1 targeted pass catcher on Kansas City, but getting 22 to 26% of Patrick Mahomes' targets is always going to be a good thing. And if we can keep him away from Patrick's brother and off of TikTok a little bit, I think that a big season is going to be in store for Juju. J.K. Dobbins, probably right now the only dead zone running back that I want to take. I don't think that he belongs in the dead zone, but that's where his ADP is right now because of the recovery from injury from last season and the doubt that was kind of spread. I think Florio was spreading a little FUD before preseason, fear, uncertainty, and doubt about whether J.K. Dobbins was going to be ready. And J.K. Dobbins immediately clapped back and said, I'm going to be ready week 1. And his ADP didn't move. If you're telling me that I can get in round 5 a player who does have the ability, right? Like it's not out of the realm of possibilities that J.K. Dobbins could lead the league in terms of rushing touchdowns. It's very realistic considering this Baltimore Ravens offense and the fact that we saw something from that just 3 seasons ago from Mark Ingram, who did not have a high ADP. Yes, I know that Lamar Jackson is going to get his, but also this is going to be a really high volume rushing offense with J.K. Dobbins leading the way. A very explosive running back, a very high pedigreed running back. I think that the optimal ADP for him should be in the high 4th round, around where Ezekiel Elliott is going, but it's not. So I'm going to take the value here with J.K. Dobbins in round 5 if I do need another running back. If you watch the optimal draft strategy video, you know that I want to come out of the first 4 rounds with like 2 running backs, but like if I can steal Dobbins here at a bit of a value in round 5, I'm totally fine with that because I think that he has top 4 round value. Or is going to pay out well into the top 4 rounds in terms of his payoff versus ADP cost. Jalen Hurts in the 6th round. Now, this is kind of the range. Round 6, 7, and 8 is kind of where I want to lock in a quarterback. So Jalen Hurts does have the possibility. I want a quarterback that has the possibility at ending the season as the QB1. Capital T, capital H, capital E. Jalen Hurts certainly has that in his skill set. Now, the Jalen Hurts, I can hear you guys like just cracking your knuckles, warming up those keyboard fingers for the reply. Jalen Hurts is bad at football. It's your opinion, but like not based in any sort of, reality. And we also play a fantasy sport, which is a game built on a game. And Jalen Hurts and the way he plays the game, running the football a ton, provides him with a massive floor on a week in, week out basis. He was the QB1 through like 8 or 9 weeks last season, and they improved his pass catching group. Year 2 wide receivers always tend to take a jump. So Devontae Smith, who is a very high pedigreed wide receiver prospect, is entering year 2. On top of that, they added AJ Brown to this offense. Now, not somebody that I'm going out to draft. I think he's going to make a massive difference on the field, but I don't know if his numbers in a low volume passing offense are going to really jump off the page with the other target competition that he has here in Philadelphia versus he did not have that in Tennessee. But all of that just helps Jalen Hurts. More targets, more single coverage, more guys to target, added to that rushing ability in his 2nd year as a starter. Jalen Hurts in the 6th round kind of feels like he has the ability to pay off just like the players at quarterback who are being drafted 1, 2, and 3 rounds ahead of him. So a top tier quarterback, kind of the bottom of that first tier, or second tier of quarterbacks, where Josh Allen, in my opinion, is the first tier, and then there's like Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson. Like, he can have that Lamar Jackson type season where he throws for like 3,500 yards, 25 touchdowns, and runs for another 10. That's just an absolute monster season possible for Jalen Hurts. Love getting him in the 6th round here. And Elijah Moore. Now, this one takes a bit of a leap of faith now for a couple of reasons. One, Zach Wilson hurt his knee, and he may or may not be ready in the first couple of weeks of the season. He's got a recovery to do. Then they've got to take their time with him. They don't want to wreck their young prospect, don't want to end their season too early, and they have what they believe is a serviceable quarterback in Joe Flacco. So I believe that Elijah Moore's targets are going to remain high early in the season. Now, they also have the Jets, a extremely tough schedule the first 5 or 6 weeks of the season. But the second half of the season and into the playoffs is beautiful from our perspective if you're an Elijah Moore drafter. So the target upside here, I think that he can end the season with 120 to 140 targets in this Jets offense that I believe is an arrow up offense. And I like the talent. I'm buying the talent here, and I think that there's going to be progression in terms of his market share of targets and his total targets over the course of the season. But prepare yourself for what could be a rocky first month for those two reasons that I detailed already. But I like him better than any of the other players at the back end here of round 6. In round 7, Brandon Ayuk is my preferred player. Last year in this sort of range, we were drafting Deebo Samuel. I did not want Brandon Ayuk up early. This year, I'm not drafting Deebo Samuel up early. I'd rather have somebody who gets targeted versus somebody who is carrying the ball. Deebo had a monster set of targets last season, but most of that came in the first 2 months of the season. Let's say first few weeks of the season, but it was really like a month and a half, 2 months. And Brandon Ayuk was in the Shanahan doghouse and not receiving any sort of love whatsoever, got no targets at all. Now you shift quarterbacks from somebody who's going to throw the ball less than 5 yards to somebody who has the nuclear codes and is going to throw deep and throw bombs constantly. And that's where Brandon Ayuk really excels, and they can utilize Deebo as a bit of a decoy on, fake runs or put him in the backfield. Now Ayuk is going to be the guy that's going to get a little bit more love. I think we see more of a target market share that we saw in the back half of the season, between 6 and 10 targets from him on a week in, week out basis. And targets are worth more than rushing attempts. I don't think Deebo is going to score as many touchdowns from 25 yards out on the ground as he scored last season. I think that Brandon Ayuk is going to get more long touchdowns this year than he got last season, where he would have to create all of that by himself because of Jimmy G's limitations as a quarterback. Now he has Trey Lance, who has his own limitations as well. He's not going to be as accurate a passer as Jimmy G, but we're going to get that big splash possibility that we did not have last year, in addition to taking advantage of his yards after the catch, yards after first contact talent that all of those pass catchers in San Francisco have. Mention Jerry Jeudy, love Russ Wilson. As I said with Jalen Hurts, this is the range where I want to get a QB1. You have to get an elite QB this year. Russ Wilson in Denver with a new offensive scheme, better than they had in Seattle. The talent at wide receiver is not as robust up top, but it is much deeper in pass catching talent than any team that he's had in Seattle for the last 3-4 years. When you add in KJ Hamler, yes, they lost Patrick, but Jeudy and Sutton and Aquabunum and the rookie that they drafted at tight end with the gorgeous head and shoulders hair, he's the next Troy Polamalu, but at tight end. And then Dulcich is his name. Javonte Williams is tremendous in the passing game. And Melvin Gordon III, also good. Russ Wilson has so many guys to choose from that he will just pick the open player to throw to. One of the most efficient, the second most efficient quarterback in the modern era of football since the DB rules changed, right one click, like 0.1 behind Aaron Rodgers in terms of touchdown percentage. I want efficiency at quarterback because that's where the fantasy scoring comes from, but I expect a good amount of volume with the Green Bay coaches that have taken over this Denver Broncos system. In the next round, we were getting him around pick 130, and I was loving it, but right now you have to reach up. This is what I mentioned in the first round, where all of those players we were getting between 120 and 200 are now going between pick 80 and pick 130. Well, Ramondre Stevenson has moved up in drafts. He is my preferred New England Patriots running back because of his proficiency in the pass, like how good he can be in the passing game, where Damian Harris is just not going to be used at all in the passing game. There's also been rumors that Harris might be traded. If that occurs, I'm not sure it's going to occur, but if that does occur and Stevenson breaks out of the New England mold, the Belichick mold of no running back getting over 40% of the snaps on that team, if he gets like 55 to 60% of the snaps, either with Harris on the team or without, and takes over those inside the 5 carries, there's massive upside here, but we're not paying a really high price in round 8. Now, I prefer him to Chase Edmonds, who I know a lot of people are high on in this range. I don't see any path with Chase Edmonds to being a 20 to 25 touch a week guy. I think he's going to top out at like 13 to 15 because of size issues, strength issues, and injury issues. So to me in this round, I prefer Stevenson to Chase Edmonds. And also, give me Treylon Burks at the back end of round 8. If you do not have a tight end and you want to get maybe the last high talent tight end and you want to go with Dallas Goedert, who's going to get a good amount of targets for this team, should score more touchdowns than he scored last year. Loads of targets went his way after the Ertz trade. Like there's value to that. If you didn't grab one of the elite tight ends, he would be the last one that I would want to wait for, him and or Ertz, but he's got this 8th round tag on him. You can wait a few picks longer and get Ertz if you want on Arizona. But like Treylon Burks has massive upside. He's fighting Robert Woods, Bobby Trees for targets, but the rookie has massive upside. Now, there's been a lot of bad press about him right now. That happens in preseason. You remember the Jamar Chase can't catch rumors from last season? You remember when Justin Jefferson was behind BC Johnson 2 years ago? This happens to rookies in training camp. Sometimes coaches just want to prefer the veterans. Sometimes, just to show them the love. But the talent will always win out. And when it comes to games, teams are going to put the players on the field that they know can make plays. And outside of Robert Woods, who is coming off of a very massive knee injury, he is playing and he's fine, but he may lack the explosiveness at this point of his career, where Treylon Burks certainly has that, at least in on-field situations, even though his 40 time isn't like the fastest of all time. His shuttle drill wasn't the fastest of all time. Nobody's catching him from behind when they get into game situations in those SEC games. So like Treylon Burks is definitely somebody that I wanted to draft here now that he's fallen from like a 6th round pick to an 8th round pick. Take advantage of that dip. Dameon Pierce is another player who has risen in round 9. I think we're fine here just after pick 100, like 105 now. We were getting him around pick 130 to 150 most of the summer, but now if you want this running back, you have to pay up to get him. I know he's on a bad team. I know that Marlon Mack may start week 1 as the primary running back on Houston, but Dameon Pierce has all the looks of the number 1 guy. If he does not have the job in week 1, he will have it by the end of the first month, and we're paying for the upside here. Now, what's the upside of a rookie running back on a bad team? The upside is James Robinson's rookie season. That's the ceiling, right? Let's identify that as the ceiling, with like a 10 touchdown, 1,300 yard season with like 40 catches, right? It sounds tremendous, but it's not when you consider the volume. If he is to get us 300 touches this year, it would massively pay off his ADP and give me younger rookies with a lot of juice on a team that wants to figure out what they have and can play a guy on a rookie scale contract who is their most talented back. No coach is going to try and tank. I know that that's the mindset of like every single fantasy, but they're trying to lose games. The players and the coaches are never trying to lose games, because you never want to put bad tape out there, A, as a player, and B, if you don't win as a coach, you get fired. So you're going to get this great draft pick for the next guy. So every coach is trying to outperform. Dameon Pierce, if he gets the starting nod, I'm expecting 15 plus touches or opportunities a game every single week. You can get that in the 9th round. Very solid. On the other side of that, Devin Singletary. This is the range that he's been drafted in all offseason. I'm still drafting him now in round 9. The Bills' number 1 running back. Yes, I know that Cook is there. Well, don't you think that Cook is going to take some touches from him? No. Buffalo has not run a single running back philosophy. That's just not what they do. But I do think that Singletary is going to be that guy who gets 60 or 65% of the snaps and touches in Buffalo. That's exactly what we want. You also have big time touchdown upside because of playing in this Bills offense. From weeks 15 through weeks 20, he had a touchdown or multiple touchdowns in every week. He averaged 21 fantasy points a game during that stretch. Now, yes, he was the only back playing like 85+% of the snaps, but dial it back to 60, cut a little bit of production out of that, and you're getting the possibility of let's say a 13 to 15, 13 to 16 point per game back with a 9th round price tag. because people are afraid of a passing down back. Moving on to the 10th round, Aaron Rodgers remains. He's still in here for me. The most efficient quarterback. Yes, he lost Adams, but if you do his splits and games with and without Davante Adams, the last 3 seasons, he's actually just fine. It's really weird that like Davante Adams has gotten the lion's share of his targets. And yeah, the talent in the wide receiver room is less. And Tunyon is recovering from an ACL, may not be ready at the beginning of the season. But you know what? There are pass catchers who elevate quarterbacks, and there are quarterbacks who can elevate pass catchers. Davante Adams is an elevator, and Aaron Rodgers himself is also an elevator of talent. So assuming that he can get enough out of Lazard and Romeo Doubs, and possibly if Watson can present himself as a valuable player in this offense, or if they acquire or sign somebody at the end of camp, a more of a veteran look to pull into this offense, Aaron Rodgers is going to be Aaron Rodgers. I'm not necessarily projecting he's going to be the MVP, but like 4,000 yards and 25 plus touchdowns is certainly in play for a 10th round price tag. And the last player on this My Perfect Draft list, we were drafting Russell Gage in May and June when he was a value. And then his ADP went from like 120 up to like 70. And then we weren't drafting him when he was at 70. And now he's fallen all the way back down to like 115. That's where I'm happy drafting Russell Gage. Again, the caveat, Tom Brady has to be there. But if he is, can you name any of Tom Brady's slot wide receivers over the last 20 years? Sure you can. They've always done well because Tom Brady feeds his slot receiver, and Russell Gage profiles best as a slot receiver. So if he is playing enough snaps, 65% plus of the slot snaps in Tampa Bay, he's gonna eat in a high-powered offense and have some spike weeks for you where he has a touchdown, maybe has 8 catches and 100 yards. A perfect pick here around the 115 to 120 range. Thank you guys for being here. I appreciate you. Drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, look out for another video right there.
He's a legend.